All right, good morning, everyone. Derek Cravat, who normally chairs on behalf of MassDOT OTP for the UPWP committee, is running late to the office with the orange line delays this morning. So I will be chairing in his place until he arrives to the office. I'm going to begin with roll call from MAPC. Is Eric here?
Good morning, Eric Barassa with the Metropolitan Area Planning Council.
Thank you. Arlington at large.
Yes, Daniel Amstutz from the town of Arlington here.
Boston BTD. Okay, Framingham Metro West. Okay, Medway Swap. Not hearing anyone. Newton at large city.
David Kozis representing Mayor Fuller from Newton.
Morning, David. Norwood, TRIC and VRC.
Steve Olenoff representing the Trick subregion.
Morning, Steve. Somerville Intercore.
Present Tom Bent, representing City of Somerville, and Mayor Cacciano Ballantyne in the Intercore.
Morning, Tom. RTAC.
Leonard Diggins Advisory Council here. Thanks.
Morning, Leonard. Is there anyone else on the call representing a body or an alternate? Okay, hearing none, just wanted to know to please see the notice of non-discrimination. You're invited to participate in our transportation planning process, regardless of your race, color, national origin, including limited English proficiency, religion, creed, gender, ancestry, ethnicity, disability, age, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity or expression, veteran status, or background. The full notice is available on the Boston MPO website. As far as virtual meeting guidelines, all participants will join the meeting with muted microphones. Please rename yourself to include your first name, last name, and affiliation. Please do not unmute and mute yourself. To participate in the discussion, please select the raise hand function. Find this by clicking either on the participants button at the bottom of the screen, and a window will pop up with a raise hand button at the bottom, or the reactions button in the toolbar. The chair will then call on participants. If you are on the phone, you can use *9 to raise your hand. If you have any technical difficulties, please contact Logan Casey via the chat box or email lcasey, C-A-S-E-Y, @ctps.org or dial 857-702-3706. Thank you. Now we have the accessibility statement. This meeting is accessible to people with disabilities. Zoom products are compliant with exceptions with the following standards: web content, accessibility guidelines 2.1, level AA standards, and revised section 508 standards. If you require any additional accommodations in order to participate fully in this meeting, please contact Logan Casey, MPO staff at lcasey@ctps.org. or dial 857-702-3706. All right, first item on the agenda is introductions. I think I did that already. Public comments. Is there anyone at the meeting that would like to make a public comment at this time? Hearing none, we will move to action item 3. Vote to move draft federal fiscal year 2023 UPWP to MPO board. Select, is this you?
Yep, that's me.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, everyone. You can go to the next slide, Logan. So today I am here to request that the committee approve the draft federal fiscal year 2023 UPWP to be sent to the MPO board for review and release for public comment. Since the last meeting on June 30th, we sent around a memo outlining the final list of studies and their adjusted budgets. So to recap, we have finalized updating the bicycle pedestrian count database, flexible fixed route bus service, the transit modernization program, the lab and municipal parking study, learning from roadway pricing experiences, and sustainability and decarbonization in the freight and logistics sector in the North Suffolk area as the discrete studies to be funded this year. So the most important change from between last meeting and this meeting is how we've reworked the congestion pricing so-called study. So learning from roadway pricing experiences is a new name for our reworked approach to completing a study related to roadway pricing, which includes congestion pricing in the upcoming federal fiscal year 2023. So to provide a bit of context, when a congestion pricing study was excluded from the recommended studies last year, this committee asked staff to include a congestion pricing study in this year's UPWP. We first included a staff proposal, which examined the impacts of congestion pricing from an equity perspective, but based on the conversations in these UPWP meetings, we've modified the proposed approach as well as scaled down the proposed approach to a smaller study budget. I think the initial budget was somewhere in that 80,000 range. Our revised budget for this project is about $45,000 for this federal fiscal year. As proposed, this work would entail interviewing and learning from planners and policymakers who have implemented or are in the process of implementing roadway pricing policies across the US. This would not be a literature review, as those are extensively available. Instead, the intent is to directly engage professionals that are the most qualified to talk from personal experiences about the challenges, barriers, but also opportunities they faced, the benefits they measure and communicate, and other aspects of implementing roadway pricing. For this study, we would consider roadway pricing to include cordon-style congestion pricing in New York City, highway tolling and pricing of various forms and places, dynamic parking pricing in San Francisco, Washington, D.C., in Boston, and potentially other cities. You can go to the next slide, Logan. These findings will allow the Boston region, both the MPO and its constituent municipalities and other entities, to be better informed and prepared to meet challenges to implement some kind of roadway pricing strategy at a future time. Also time and funding allowing, we could host a forum to discuss these results. And the entire goal of this study is really to ensure that if roadway pricing ever becomes a project we fund or a policy adopted by the state, this MPO is as prepared as possible to understand the challenges and also the opportunities that we have to implement such policy. Additionally, generally speaking, from the last meeting, we realized a strong need to adjust budgets of proposed studies. So the main cuts that you might see in this UPWP were from the lab and municipal parking study and the freight study. This is due to an expected MAPC contribution to make up that amount that we cut from both of those studies. So the lab and municipal parking study was budgeted at about $100,000, I believe, and it's now been reduced to $80,000. And the freight study was budgeted somewhere in that $100,000 to $125,000, and it's now been adjusted to $67,500. So the full study descriptions as well as their associated budgets can be found in Chapter 4. Next slide, please. So at this time today, I would like to ask the committee to move this draft to the MPO board, where we will request the board to vote to release it for public comment. Looking ahead, the public comment period will run from July 22nd to August 12th, and we will be asking the board to endorse this UPWP at the August 18th meeting. Thank you so much for your time, and I will be more than happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions at this time? Hearing none, could we please have a motion and a second to approve this meeting summary? Eric?
I'll make a motion to approve the 2023 UPWP and send it to the board.
Thank you, Leonard.
Second that motion.
Thank you. All right. MassDOT OTP Chair votes yes. MAPC,
Yes.
Arlington at large.
Daniel Amstutz, yes.
Okay. Newton,
David Kozis, yes.
Westwood, Trick.
Trick, yes.
Thank you. Somerville Intercore,
Tom Bent, yes.
Artec.
Leonard Diggins, yes.
All right. I saw some others joined us from the call. Are there any other voting members that have hopped on? Okay. Hearing none, the motion passes. Thank you. Leonard, your hand is still raised.
Sorry about that.
Oh, you're good. All right, the next item on the agenda is agenda item 4, universe of proposed studies for federal fiscal year 2023. Sandy and Streleka, is this you?
I think this would be Jonathan.
Oh, Jonathan, my bad. Go ahead, Jonathan.
Yes, this would be to vote to move the draft federal fiscal year 2022 Amendment 2 to the UPWP to the MPO board. So I will. Hopefully this works. We're here today to let's see what's happening. Oh, here we go. So I'm here today to present the amendment in its form. As I said, this is the second amendment to the FY 2022 UPWP. The first was done last November by the MPO board. Each year, staff perform a thorough assessment of the spending patterns in the first 3 quarters of the fiscal year, as well as fourth quarter needs to propose UPWP budget adjustments to the final quarter. There's 2 primary reasons for the amendment. One being that we've had staff attrition and recruitment and training of new staff. And we've also had an evolution of project or line item needs for those projects which require the adjustment. So I will go over each of those individually. For the tip, we are reducing the existing budget by $80,000. And the reason that we are doing so is that work that was expected to be done on the TIP database, as well as the public-facing interactive application, have been delayed due to limited staff resources. As many of you know, we lost Matt in June. We are still looking to get a new TIP manager. We do expect these efforts to focus in 2023 to work on those items. For the performance-based planning and programming item, we are reducing that budget by $41,000. Again, the reason is staff attrition and changes in staff responsibilities, requiring us to focus on some other items. So we are reducing that part of it. For the public participation process, we are reducing that budget by $30,000. I don't know if Sean is on the line now. I don't believe he is, but the reason for that would be that, again, we've had staff attrition and a gap in bringing on new staff. As some of you will recall, we had split off the groups to create the communications and engagement group earlier this year, which hired a new manager, and we were hiring a new public outreach coordinator at the time. For the regional transit service planning and technical support, we are reducing that budget by $28,000. The reason being is that we have requests for Sudbury. We've had less requests come in this year for those needs, and so as such, we are reducing the budget based on the limited requests for that. Moving on to the next slide. Oop. Yes. For the Regional Transportation Advisory Council, we are proposing to reduce that budget by $20,000, primarily due to, again, staff attrition earlier this year, as well as filling in the gap with other staff going forward. And we expect that to be ramped up again for 2023. For the equity program, we are reducing that by $14,000. And the reason that we're reducing that is we expected to do a Title VI report for the MPO, which was postponed after coordination with MassDOT until this coming fiscal year in 2023. We've also had some equity staff time that was redirected to the discrete study for identifying transportation inequities in the Boston region. For the addressing safety and roadway portion, we're reducing that by $10,000. The reason being is that those were moved to fiscal year 2023 to finalize those reports and will be presented to the MPO in fiscal year 2023. For the COVID-19 recovery research project, we're reducing that by $9,000 because we only expected to fund, there was no research topics or technical assistance needs that were identified for this year. For the staff-generated research and technical assistance, we are reducing that budget by $9,000 because we only had one funded study that came out of that. So we had extra budget there. For the priority corridors and the LRTP needs assessment, we're reducing that by $5,000. Again, this is going to be moved to FFY 2023 to finalize the reports and present to the MPO. For the safety and operations analysis of selected intersections in FY 22, we are looking to decrease that by $2,500 so that, again, this was moved to FY 23 to finalize the report, and again will be presented to the MPO at that time. For the UPWP, we are proposing an increase to that budget of $9,000. The reason being is that we have an additional knowledge transfer and training of the new project manager. As you know, Street Lake came on with board with us this year, and Sandy has been very instrumental in helping to assist her in getting up to speed on the UPWP. For the bicycle and pedestrian support category, which is the next one. Oh, I'm sorry. I think I'm off the slides here. For this support the MPO and its committees, we're proposing an additional $23,500 into that budget. The reason being is that we're looking to fund additional funds for operations plan support, working with the A&F committee, work that has already begun and will be forthcoming on the federal certification review for this year, and additional support for the MPO graphics program, provision for materials in accessible formats, and some assistance with the transit working group, the transportation demand management, and freight planning support. For computer resources management, we're proposing an increase to that budget of $27,000. The reason for that is we are looking to include additional staff time to support some changes we've had to the equipment needs, as well as the staff time to address those. For addressing safety, mobility, and access on the regional roadways for FY 2021. we are proposing to restore the budget to the original amount that was scoped at $127,900 to which was underspent in FY21 due to the COVID-19 pandemic. For the intersection improvement program, we are proposing an increase of $30,000 to that budget, again, to restore it to its original amount of $75,000. Excuse me, to its original amount as we underspent in 2021 due to COVID. And for the regional enhancement model, we are proposing an increase of $40,000 to that budget for additional work to implement and validate the new travel demand model TDM 23 to support the 2023 LRTP. And I believe those are all of the changes that.
Thank you, Jonathan. Was there a slide before that with there?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, I did miss a slide, my mistake. For the budget, for the bicycle and pedestrian support activities, again, that budget is proposed to be increased by $10,000 for additional late year work related to the Blue Hills Trail Crossing study. For the long range transportation plan, we are proposing a budget increase of $33,000. Again, with the knowledge transfer of the outgoing project manager, in this case, Ann McGann, and additional staff training needed to bring in other staff to work on the needs for the LRTP. For the low cost improvements to express highway bottleneck locations, again, we're proposing an increase of $11,000 for that budget to be completed and restore the budget to its original scope. Again, underspent due to the COVID-19 pandemic in 2021. For the resiliency program, we are increasing the budget by $17,000. And the reason for that is that we are building capacity to address new focus areas and federal emphasis areas from the bipartisan infrastructure law, as well as the new hired staff person who started with us 2 weeks ago, who will be taking over that program. And finally, the priority corridors from LRTP needs assessment for 2021. That would be increased, again, restoring the budget amount due to the underspending in 2021. So with that, we are asking that the UPWP committee vote to release, or rather recommend to the MPO to release the amendment 2 for 21-day public comment period. Again, this would be beginning likely tomorrow, July 22nd, and we would anticipate endorsement of the UPWP amendment at the August 18th MPO meeting, as well as as a meeting of the UPWP committee. And with that, I turn it back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Jonathan. I see a question from Leonard.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I'm going to actually turn off that video because it's going to get a funky shot as I move my face really close to the screen. Just but nothing concerning, I mean, we're going to be happy to either later move approval or support the vote both positively. But just some questions regarding, first off, on the tip line, where there is a decrease in spending because there wasn't staff to do work on the database. And then there's a line towards the bottom where there's an increase in spending because of time required to do data analysis. Might those be linked? I know one is database, one is analysis, but sometimes I find what happens is if you are working with either an outdated system or you don't have the staff support to help you do automation, you end up just doing a lot of manual work or just things inefficiently. And it takes more time. That's a question.
That's a good point, Len. I believe the data analysis is related to other work that's ongoing for the MPO and not specifically for the TIP. I would defer to one of my colleagues to talk more about that data analysis if possible. But what I would say is that I don't think they are linked based on the way we have them here.
Yeah.
But it's certainly something we could consider for the future.
Okay, great, fine. So with the staff research and also, well, I'll link these two initially. Now I think I'll pop them apart. Is that perhaps due to the fact that staff is working on other things? Because I see like towards the bottom where there's increase in the line items that requires more work from staff. Is it that staff is just deployed on those areas and just don't have the bandwidth to generate ideas for studies or follow through on ideas they might have?
That's correct. That's
Okay.
correct, Glenn. Yes.
Okay, all right. So it's not indicating that there's a dearth of imagination. Okay, great. That's good. So with respect to supporting the regional technical assistance, so this one might be due to a dearth of demand. It seems like that really is an issue with just no one asking for us to do it. It's not that they're asking us and we don't have the staff to do it. Is that the case?
Just to be clear, you mean the regional transit service technical support?
Yeah, sorry.
Yes. My understanding is that the requests for those have not come in as much as expected.
Right.
And so because of that, we did have some come in. It's not, again, a lack of imagination or a piece, but there's been less of a request this year for that.
And we would have been able to support it had they come in.
I believe so, yes.
Okay, great. And the last one is on the increase in spending on the regional model enhancement. I'd like to think it wasn't due to Marty Milkovich's gracious invitation to let me sit in on them. I wouldn't ask like $40,000 worth of questions, but I just want to take the opportunity to express again my appreciation to Marty for letting me sit in. I don't feel smarter, but I certainly do feel more aware. Thank you.
Thank you, Leonard. I had a brief question. I was just curious if direct costs are at all part of the cost changes for these items, and if that's reflected in more detail in what will be released for public comment.
I can speak to that. These are just staff time changes. It's not direct costs.
Okay, thank you. With that, would anyone like to make a motion to make a recommendation on behalf of the UPWP committee for the MPO to vote to release this amendment? Stephen Olenoff.
Yeah. I just have one more question on
Go ahead.
On the Regional Transportation Advisory Council. Len didn't ask anything, so I assume he's happy, but it seems like it was a pretty big, you actually spent half of what was originally budgeted for staff support there. And it seems that there was not a problem. What is it going to be next year? I was looking in the UPWP, I can't seem to find the under that same number for 23, what it is, and how did they manage to sort of survive the year with only what appears to be half the money spent on support.
Leonard, did you want to answer that?
Well, I was raising my hand. Steve assumed that I was happy with it. That's a little bit of a stretch, Steve. It's more that I'm pretty aware of it. We do what we can. And so we're keeping the meetings going, keeping the agendas going, hopefully making them interesting. The minutes are what they are. Staff is going to catch up with them. Probably things are getting posted to the YouTube channel a little bit later. But I'll let other people on the staff address this. So I just wanted to chime in the assume I'm happy phrase. That's it. Thanks.
Net?
Yeah, I can speak to that a bit. We have noticed that was funded at a higher level. We used to have a higher level staff person working on that. And so we've been having leftover money each year in that line item. So it is something that we have reduced the budget in for next year because we don't have that person working here anymore. And it just took us some time to catch up on that.
Oh, so what's the budget for 23? Did the number change? Because I'm searching for it in the new 23.
I
don't
don't
see it.
remember precisely, but I think it was close to the 20,000.
I believe it is 18,000.
18, okay.
18, so it is a step down. So,
Yeah.
as a past member of the Regional Transportation Advisory Council, I know there are other people the same way. I'm always concerned about our support for the Regional Transportation Advisory Council. And so, is that adequate, or do they need more support?
Right, and that's something we'll keep an eye on during the year. And if we do need to make a budget adjustment at some point to add more money in there. I mean, now we're just kind of trying to fine tune and get the right price point there, and we're not sure what it is, to be honest. So we'll keep an eye on it. If we seem to be overspending at a rate that would use that budget up early, we'll do an amendment to put more money into that line item, because we certainly do want to support the advisory council. It's very important to us.
Okay, thank you.
Eric, I see your hand is raised.
Yeah, I'm happy to make a motion to vote to release the amendment 2 for a 21-day public comment period.
Okay, thank you, Eric. Daniel?
I will second that motion.
All right. I wanted to invite any other comment before we go to vote. Apologize, I didn't formally do that before. All right, hearing none, I'll go through the list. MassDOT votes yes. MAPC?
Yes.
Arlington?
Yes.
Did we have someone join from Metro West?
I believe we had someone join from the swap area, from swap, Peter Pelletier.
Okay, swap? Okay, Newton,
David Kozis, yes.
Trick,
Trick votes yes.
Somerville,
Tom Bent, Somerville votes yes.
thank you, and Artak.
I think it's yes.
Okay, the motion passes. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is members' items. Would any members like to share anything at this time? Hearing and seeing none, we'll go to the next item, which is next meeting. There is not a meeting date scheduled as of today. And I will defer to staff and your actual UPWP committee chair on whether or not we will schedule a follow-up meeting, assuming that the MPO releases the actions recommended today. Daniel.
Yeah, I just, if I recall from several slides ago, that the UPWP would be adopted at is it the August 18th MPO meeting? Was that the intention if we did the 21-day comment period?
Yes.
Okay, so we wouldn't necessarily need to have a UPWP meeting that day.
Right.
That's my understanding. Sandy or Jonathan?
We typically have had a meeting the morning that the MPO votes to endorse, to just get the committee's endorsement of the document first. I guess it wouldn't be strictly necessary, but that is traditionally what we've done. Also, so that the committee can review any comments that we've gotten in and get staff's response to that.
That's correct.
Okay, well, I'll just, yeah, that would make sense then if that's the schedule. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Daniel. So yeah, tentatively, it sounds like, assuming the MPO releases the amendment, that August 18th would be the next meeting date for UPWP committee. So that sounds like the tentative date at this time. Beyond that, I see Daniel's hand is still raised. If that's an error, I will, oh, there we go. I will now ask if there's a motion to adjourn this meeting.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Eric. Is there a second? Tom?
I'll second that motion.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you so much. See you at MPO and at 10. Take care.